Hey everybody, welcome to RotoWire and the Week 7 reactions, Week 8 preview podcast. I'm Jeff Erickson here with Nick Whalen. We got a lot to talk about, as always. Started off as it started off with a bang actually on Thursday night. The early slate on Sunday and the London game were awful, but then the afternoon delivered, and we got some fun ones on Monday night. Maybe kind of a dumb game on Monday night. We'll talk about all that though, Nick. We had a 33-32 and a 33-31 game. So I think those were kind of the highlights. Miracle comeback by the Denver Broncos, where Bo Nix was terrible for 3 quarters. And then if you were going against him, you lost because of what he did in the 4th quarter.
Yeah, this was definitely the game of the week, maybe the comeback of the year. And Giants were able to still cover this game. There was really no threat that Denver was ever going to do that. But I was on the Broncos this week, Jeff. I thought the spot coming back from London, fading the Broncos in that spot was a little bit overrated to me. I thought the Giants would maybe be riding a little bit too high coming off of that win over Philly. I mean, to start this game, it was basically a continuation of what we saw in London for the Broncos. So like 7 straight quarters of just completely inept offense. You saw a lot of people complaining about the play calling from Sean Payton, going conservative, trying to establish the run, all these short passes from Bo Nix. And even as the Giants are building their lead from 7-0 to 13-0 to 19-0, Denver just could not get anything going. And it almost felt like they needed to be truly backed against the wall to like finally get that offense moving the ball downfield. And there were some really lucky plays, I thought, on both sides. The Giants scored on a tipped ball that just kind of ends up in the arms of a tight end that goes for a touchdown. Broncos had multiple plays like that, one in the end zone. There was another one where Bo Nix late in the game was targeting a receiver. The ball was so far off that it just landed in the stomach of another receiver. Yeah. But I come out of this game not really feeling like this was some sort of triumphant, oh my goodness, what a win for the Broncos. It was like, how are you in this position? How are you trailing this badly? How are you doing nothing offensively until they put up almost 300 yards of offense? Like it was 295 in the 4th quarter alone. We had 46 points on the board in the 4th quarter. Obviously the Jackson Dart interception is what kind of truly cracked the door open for Denver to make that comeback.
Yeah, absolutely. And the funny thing is, like, before the 4th quarter, Nix was terrible, just absolutely terrible.
Awful.
And then that 4th quarter, he was throwing dimes, like that back shoulder throw to Mims on 3rd and 11 to convert a 3rd and 11. I mean, my goodness, that you shouldn't be making those sort of throws, but he did. He threw a couple of dimes to Sutton too. One at the end of the game there obviously was a big one there. They converted all these 3rd downs late too. Yep. They even got the penalty 3rd down, the 3rd and 5. I mean, they might have gotten converted anyhow, but made it easier. They converted a 3rd down without the clock running when they're still trailing. Just so many bonkers plays. Obviously, the Jackson Dart interception was just a terrible, terrible play. And it was a bad throw. It was forced. He was under pressure. It was a terrible decision to throw the ball in the first place
100%.
Because it was 3rd and 5. They're still up, 10 points at that point in time, 26-16. Denver's already used 2 of their timeouts at that point. They're going to call another one, or you're going to run off 40 seconds. Either way, that's a win right there. You make him go the length of the field when you need 2 scores. Instead, they didn't have to use a timeout. It stops automatically, obviously, with the turnover anyhow. Short field, they score like immediately. The Giants defense just melted in the 4th quarter. Yeah. All the things that possibly could have gone wrong. They were doing like little things right. I was trying to see if they were dumb about the when they're snapping, but no, they ran it under 5 on the play clock every time. So they were doing that part right. But just so many other things. It's just like, come on, guys. You just have to figure this out. I mean, it didn't matter if you got a 1st down. What mattered is you kept the clock running or make them burn the timeout. That was the mission. They failed. That's a coaching thing. That's not on Dart. I mean, he had a bad throw, but should never have been put in that position. Put him, if you want to do something different, let him run outside, let him be the carrier there. But no, they didn't do that.
Yeah. And of course, Denver goes in, scores right away, and the Giants still have a chance to ice this game. They go 3 and out. They burn 1:09 off the clock. And I actually thought did the right thing on 3rd down. They ended up just throwing kind of a hopeless deep shot down the field to Wan'Dale Robinson. But, at least trying to pick up that 3rd down. Like there are some teams, notably Arizona, in that meltdown against Tennessee, where it's like, all right, you're just giving up here with the 2-minute warning coming up. Like, I think the Giants did the right thing to at least maintain that aggressiveness on the following drive. But you brought up a great point here, which is that the Giants defense played an incredible game for 3 quarters. And it looked like a totally different unit in the fourth. Like, even after that pop on the 3 and out, Denver had to go 70 yards, like something they really had only done twice in this game beforehand. And it was the previous 2 drives. Like, I still think if you're the Giants, you're like, all right, we think we can slow down this offense. They got a little bit lucky on those previous 2 drives. They go 68 yards in 51 seconds. I mean, it was just so easy for Denver in the fourth quarter. And then, we haven't even mentioned the very dubious pass interference call that handed the Giants what looked to be the game-winning touchdown. Still just enough time for Denver to get into range, kick the field goal. I don't even know if the right team won here. I don't think it did. I think the Giants played well enough over the first 3 quarters. I thought I liked what I saw from Dart, from that running game, getting Tyrone Tracy involved. He had a long run where he was just untouched for a touchdown. I really couldn't believe how badly that Broncos defense was playing on balance. But the Broncos are a really tough team to figure out now. They're sitting at 5-2. I think that's probably about the expected record through 7 games. You lose a close game to the Colts. You lose a close game to the Chargers, beat the Eagles. I don't feel good about the direction of this team at all. I know you're coming off of the London game, and if you want to chalk it up to that, so be it. But Sean Payton spent the entire summer telling us about this big leap Bo Nix was going to make, and no leap has been made.
No, and I think I've heard some people blame the pass catchers. It might be true that the number 2 receiver isn't very good, whether it's Franklin or Mims in any given week. But honestly, this is on Bo Nix. I really feel like he's maybe not backslid, but he hasn't advanced. And we know, it's week. So this was week 7. We saw this is about the point in time last year where he took a leap. It's still possible to take another leap this year, but it hasn't happened yet. Maybe this game serves as a launching point. I don't know. A couple other things in this one here. Obviously the missed extra point on the second touchdown loomed large the rest of the game. They chased points, tried to go for a conversion on the third touchdown, and then obviously the missed conversion at the end there. It's so funny. Harlan was doing this game, and he was prescient on the penultimate score where the Broncos went up ahead 30-26. He goes, big extra point coming up here for the Broncos. Sure enough, it was a big extra point for the Broncos, and they made it. That part's disastrous. The Giants, though, in addition to the disputed pass interference penalty, there was the 4th and 19 that he converted with the roughing the passer. That was okay. And then there was a near interception. Denver had 2 defensive backs collide with each other. That should have been a pick to end the game right there. We wouldn't have, we still would have had the same crazy result, but it was even crazier because they didn't hold on the interception. That was kind of a theme for this weekend too, by the way. There was a couple of those, so there was I think it was the Bears that knocked each other off on an interception too, where it would have made it a bigger blowout in the game. But although Rattler was still turning it over like it was candy anyhow, but so this is, and yet I feel like, Denver survived this. They survived the offensive malaise last week in London. I don't think we've seen their best since the Philly game. And even that game, it was a half a game where they play well. I still think there's another gear left in this team. And I think they maybe find it this week against Dallas. It's a feeling, not really based on evidence. I don't know.
Well, it's the Cowboys defense, and Denver gets to remain home for this game. So, if there is a get-right spot, this is it. After that, you go to Houston. That's a tough defense. Then home for the Raiders and home for the Chiefs. So, kind of a mix of good and bad in this upcoming month for Denver. But, I think this week will tell us a lot. I mean, everybody's moving the ball on Dallas. I know that defense kind of showed up against Washington. Weird game. Washington's got all these injuries. Jaden Daniels goes out. I wouldn't say I feel significantly better about the Cowboys defense coming out of that.
No, I don't either. Let's talk about the other wild, close, same scoring game, 33-31. Bengals over the Steelers on Thursday night. Usually we don't talk about the Thursday night one, but I have to have my Bengals talk here, Nick. First of all, thoroughly enjoyable game to watch, even though it was agonizing all at the same time. I don't feel any better about the Bengals defense. Certainly not after giving up a 3rd and 18 touchdown and a 2nd and 20 touchdown. Apparently tight ends are free to roam the land whenever the Bengals play. Truly horrific linebacking play by this team. And yet the real story of the game was Joe Flacco and what he's done to transform this team in the interim until they can get Burrow back.
Yeah, I mean, Cincinnati is at the point now where it's like it feels like they're benching a new defensive starter every week because they're just they're just fed up with what they're seeing. And the defense again didn't play all that well in this game. 2 takeaways from Aaron Rodgers. One of those was just a bad throw, an uncharacteristic kind of deep shot into double coverage by Rodgers. The other one was a reception that was ripped away by a Bengals defender. So that one not on Aaron Rodgers, but both of those turnovers ended up being huge. This was a super fun game. I think we knew there would be something weird going on here when you have like 2 40-year-old quarterbacks going at it, but we had 6 straight scoring drives at one point. It was just back and forth the entire second half. Flacco goes 342, 3 touchdowns on 47 attempts. Chase, Higgins, Noah Fant with the touchdowns. Rodgers threw touchdowns to 3 different tight ends, Johnny Smith, Darrell Washington, and Freiermuth, plus Metcalf got one. Fantasy wise, Jalen Warren dominated touches for the Pittsburgh running backs. I thought we might see a little bit more of Kenneth Gainwell just because of how bad that Cincy run defense has been, but Warren ended up being the guy. Big game for him. And then lo and behold, Jeff, a breakout game finally for Chase Brown, 108 yards on just 11 carries.
Yeah, it was early too, that they kind of established that. You're like, oh, what happened here? I'll say one thing maybe that happened is Mike Gesicki was out for this game. They had Drew Sample in. He had 53, I want to say 53% of the offensive snaps and didn't run a single route. So that just meant he was an extra blocker the entire time. Yeah. And they committed to the extra blocker, especially with Flacco under center. And I think that was one of the things that kind of opened things up a little bit there. But yeah, Brown ran well. Samaje Perine played well when he was in there. Higgins got fed. Chase had, and then of course it's an absurd number of targets for Jamar Chase, which I think every team needs to do a little bit more of that. I was listening to the Athletic podcast talking about Niners and Falcons and how they just didn't feed Drake London enough. It's true, they didn't, and these teams need to do that. Just keep feeding your alpha receiver more.
Well, especially when you're going up against this Pittsburgh defense, which I just don't think is very good. I'm going to be honest. There's been a couple spots where they've looked okay. On balance, this has not been a good year for the Pittsburgh defense. And I know, Steelers, Packers in Pittsburgh this week, a lot of narratives around that game. I think this is a really good spot for the Green Bay offense, to kind of let Jordan Love get loose, to let Josh Jacobs get loose. He has not had a great season efficiency-wise, but I think this is going to be a tough matchup for the Steelers. If you're like, I know the Bengals have weapons. I know Joe Flacco played well in this game, but there were really only like 1 or 2, like, wow, that was a great throw from Flacco. It was just like, oh, there's Jamar Chase running wide open over the middle. Once again, let's let him pick up some yak yardage. I mean, Chase, I get your point on, hammer your primary target. This was an extreme version of that. This was the 3rd most targets in any game ever, tied for 3rd with 23. Antonio Brown and Roddy White also had 23 in a game. The only players with more targets in a regular season game, Chris Chambers, of all people, 26 for the Miami Dolphins back in 2005. And your record holder, Brandon Marshall, had a 28 target game in 2009.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I mean, those Steelers DBs were put out on the island too much, and you could just tell that they were, it was not a good idea to do that there. Jalen Ramsey at the end got beat by Higgins out on the island there. Darius Slay got banged up in this one too. That made it even worse for the Steelers, exacerbated the problem. And I think they sacked Flacco once late in the game. They even did the accidental RPO for Flacco. That was wild. But they weren't getting to him. I thought it was bad linebacker play on both sides of the ball. I thought both teams' linebackers were just getting torched. I think that was one of the takeaways for me. The Bengals, they couldn't cover tight ends. They couldn't tackle. And frankly, the Steelers were kind of disappointing in that respect too. You said they faced the Packers. They're home dogs this week. We know the record for Tomlin on short rest road games. It's not good. Now he gets the long rest, and that's usually pretty good for them. But it's like it's a recording almost. The Steelers get off to a good start. The schedule toughens up, and things get tougher for them.
Yeah. Yeah. And, no Calvin Austin for Pittsburgh in this game, just from, fantasy wise. We'll see if he's back on Sunday night, but it led to, a very kind of concentrated DK Metcalf and then all these tight ends. Like, that's not necessarily going to be the case every week. I do think Pittsburgh will be shopping for a wide receiver. I think they kind of feel like the Jacoby Myers team to me, and that would change things for this offense. Jacoby Myers is not, a top 15 receiver in the NFL, but it would still be a pretty big upgrade over what they've been dealing with. And then, just to close the book on this game, I mean, this is huge for Cincinnati to steal a win here, especially with the Jets on the schedule at home. I mean, Cincinnati is almost a full touchdown favorite in that game. Like, you got a chance to move to 4-4. You get the Bears at home after that, then at the Steelers. I mean, these are all winnable games. There is a path to at least 2-1 over these next three.
Yeah, which is exactly why the Bengals traded for Flacco. And I was quizzical at best about the acquisition. But it set out to do what they accomplished, was make them competitive every single week. They were non-competitive under Jake Browning. I'm shocked that he was so bad, but he was so bad. So they had to do something, probably the best they can do. And for a week, for 2 weeks, actually, because second half of that Packers game actually looked decent too. So yeah, so far, so good as far as that goes. All right. We're going to talk about the Monday night games next, but first, quick note from our friends over at Circa. It's football season. The best place to catch the games is at Circa Resort and Casino in downtown Las Vegas, featuring the best pool in history, Stadium Swim. Stadium Swim has 3 levels, 6 pools, and a 143-foot diagonal screen. Whether it's Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday, Stadium Swim is America's favorite place to watch football. No matter the size of your group, Stadium Swim is the place for you. From owner's suites to cabanas, day beds to stadium booths, there are seating choices for everyone. And the best part, Stadium Swim is open 365 days a year. With temperature-controlled pools, it's a great place to catch the games all season long. Stadium Swim, located at Circa Resort and Casino in downtown Las Vegas. Book today at circalasvegas.com. Jeff Erickson here with Nick Whalen. We had 2 games on Monday night. It was a long night, Nick. I kind of like I kind of thought I'd like this, the separated starts. By the end of the night, I was kind of wishing they were overlapping a little bit more.
I'll be honest, I'm a big proponent of the true doubleheader. I'm a night owl. I like staying up late. I did watch the end of Seattle-Houston on my phone in bed. I had to do it.
Yeah.
I had to do it. It was like 12:35 a.m. Eastern when that finally wrapped up. And we could start with that game. I mean, both games were weird to a degree. This was one of the stranger games of the season, like in a lot of ways, a dominant win for Seattle. And yet it ended up being just a 1-score margin. Seattle goes 2 of 14, converting third downs in this game. Houston was even worse, 3 of 19, if you count third and fourth down tries. But both teams ran a ton of plays. There's a reason this game took forever. 69 total plays for Houston, 67 for Seattle. I believe this was the 3rd most total plays run in a game this season. 3.7 yards per play for the Houston Texans, man. I know the Seattle defense is really good. It feels like that pass rush picks up momentum every week. Houston did not figure anything out with the running game, with the offensive line over the bye week. I think that win over Baltimore, kind of is what it is. It is what it looked like at the time, which is the Ravens just being extremely banged up and being in a bad spot. I feel for CJ Stroud, to be honest. He wasn't great last night. He missed some throws, had some drops, but was under siege the entire game. And even when he wasn't under extreme pressure, you could just kind of see him like ready to bail at all times. Like, he's throwing off platform. He's just not comfortable in the pocket. There's not a lot of weapons on this team. Like, Seattle did a good job taking away Nico Collins. Like, Dalton Schultz and Jalen Noel, ended up being kind of the big 2 for the Houston Texans, which I don't think is the plan most weeks. So, another kind of ho-hum, should have been maybe a little bit more convincing win for Seattle 2 weeks in a row after that 20-12 win over Jacksonville last week. But if Seattle doesn't turn the ball over 4 times, I think we feel a lot better about this. And, 2 fumbles. One of the interceptions was this completely unnecessary reverse pass by Cooper Kupp. You're running that at like the 20-yard line of the Texans. You're moving the ball well at that point. I didn't really understand why they felt the need to pull out that trick play that had no chance.
He threw it so confidently, though, too. He's set in the pocket, threw that ball. It was, it wasn't like one of those like a non-quarterback throws where it's like an awkward-looking throw. It was a throw. He just missed. He just missed it badly.
Well, and even if he completes it, it's like an 8-yard gain. It's like, why are you pulling that play out in that spot? You're risking taking points off the board. Even if you don't punch it in for a touchdown, traditionally, you're getting a field goal there. Like, I don't know. I'm of the belief if you're using a trick play, you got to be picking up 20 plus yards minimum, because there's enough risk with those plays when you have a non-quarterback throwing the ball that, like, the payoff to me was just not worth it.
Exactly. It was the 2nd worst trick play of the weekend, the worst being USC versus Notre Dame. That was just, and they were driving the ball too. Just utter disaster. So yeah, that was a tough look though for the Seahawks, but they benefited because Houston was equally inept on offense. It was just one of those back and forth games where okay, this is finally going to kill the Texans. Okay, this is finally going to kill the Texans. Oh, this will do it. Like I tweeted something after the interception right at the start of the third quarter. Okay, good feeling gone, like the Finding Nemo gif there and all that. And Seattle only turned that into a field goal. Still, okay, 17-6 at the time, not that bad. They go and then you get they go 20. I think it's like 20-6 then. But then the sack fumble. I mean, like just unforced. I mean, great play by Will Anderson, but that never should have been in play. That never should have happened. That sort of result. That's the only way you put Houston back into this game. And it's because Seattle couldn't run the ball, and
yeah. I mean, we saw some bad Darnold in this game, just kind of the boneheaded, not taking care of the ball, not getting the ball out in that situation. And you're right. I mean, there were like 7 times in the first 3 quarters where you're like, all right, Seattle's got this sewn up. I could probably turn this off. And there was always something, whether it was, even after the Charbonnet touchdown to go up 15, they immediately forced a 3-and-out. They sacked CJ Stroud. And you're like, all right, if they can even just get a field goal here, this is all of a sudden, 30-12 and it's game over. And Seattle in the fourth quarter goes 3-and-out punt, fumble, 2-play interception, 3-and-out punt. And then, we're finally able to run out the clock at the end. Like there were like just so many key drives where it would have been the step on the throat drive and Seattle just never did it. But I don't really hold this against Seattle by any means. A win's a win. Certainly good for the city of Seattle. We saw they kept showing fans who were like watching the Mariners on their phone. One guy brought an iPad to watch the Mariners, who of course lost this game like midway through the Seahawks game. But Seattle's 5-2 right now, man. This looks like a very serious playoff contender to me. I would still like to see more out of the running game, which you highlighted. I mean, it's kind of bad in real life. It's also very bad in fantasy. Like, I guess I'm more comfortable starting Charbonnet now, even though Walker had more carries and more yards. And I thought they kind of looked similar in terms of effectiveness, but it seems like more often than not, if there is a touchdown or two coming from the Seahawks running game, it's going to Charbonnet.
Yeah, for sure. And when they come back off the bye in week 9, I'll have to put a little sticky note to remind myself to rank Charbonnet ahead of Walker, because I think that's the way to go. Even though I think Walker might actually be a better runner, but but not enough so that it's like it compels me to play him or rank him higher though. So there you go. Tampa Bay, Detroit. This one was kind of low key disappointing unless you have Jahmyr Gibbs, in which case you're feeling pretty good. But Baker had his roughest game. Obviously the Mike Evans injury is devastating, maybe not done for the year, but done for our purposes. He's a drop. As asked in the comments there when we're streaming. But tough look there because Baker missed Tez Johnson a couple times, missed Ibuka a couple of times. I came away impressed with Tez Johnson, though. I think he gets open a lot. I think he's got that upside. We didn't see a thing out of Cameron Johnson, really. So we answered the Johnson question at least. Kate Otten had a decent day, could have been better, but for a couple of reviews, including the double review, which is really hard to watch. That game is like, okay, I'm switching volume over to baseball while they sort all this out, but still.
Both of these games had some very weird officiating. Like the officials were doing everything they could to prevent like 4 potential safeties in the late game. I have no idea how we came out of that with 0 safeties. I still don't know what happened on like the fumble scramble penalty that was somehow on Houston, and yet they retained the ball play. But that is beside the point. Yeah, not a good game for Baker Mayfield, if we're being honest. This has kind of been Baker's season, it feels like so far, with the Bills scuffling and Lamar injured and the Chiefs getting off to a rough start. Like a lot of Baker MVP talk, and rightfully so. He was just not good. He wasn't good. He sailed a ton of throws in the second half. Like the Buccaneers had opportunities to work their way back into this game. Detroit drives right down. They get a touchdown right away. They force a couple of stops, but as usual, at some point they went for a reckless 4th down. They don't get it. They had a fumble early in the game. Like it was kind of astonishing to me that we went into the half with this a 14-3 game. Like Detroit was dominating. They had almost 300 yards of offense in the first half, and you felt like that door was cracked open. Tampa Bay comes out, they drive down for a touchdown, first drive of the third quarter. All of a sudden it's a 5-point game. And Detroit did well defensively to end up winning this game. Like they played well on offense. It was great to get Gibbs going, huge running play on the ground, the 78-yard touchdown, had a couple big catches as well. But I didn't think Jared Goff played all that well. Outside of Amon-Ra St. Brown, they're still struggling to get those secondary options involved. Like Laporta's had a couple nice weeks, but Jameson Williams, man, I don't know if he's a drop, but it's not looking good. I mean, there's just it feels like there's no floor every week.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. They're on bye this week, and I guarantee I probably won't drop them in my leagues. Like one of them's the Scott Fishbowl, where we have a super deep roster, so whatever. At least I won't mistakenly have him in my lineup this week, so I got that going for me. But I guarantee you, in some leagues, he's going to be a drop, and I can get behind it a little bit there, because what's going to happen is someone the next week will spend a big chunk of their fab, and maybe it'll pay off, maybe it won't, but they're going to ride the roller coaster with them there. Yeah. Obviously, it depends on what else you have, what are the other options, but I don't want to have a guy that I don't want to. I think it's bad roster construction to have keep a guy on your roster that you can't use during your bye weeks, that you can't use, and you're just like, I just don't want someone else to have him. Well, that's usually not good roster usage.
I get it with Jameson Williams though, because we know what he's capable of. We know what the spike weeks can look like. Like he's like at the top of the list of like underperforming, clearly not startable. But man, if you drop him and someone else gets the 28-point week, you are really going to feel bad about it. So I understand. Like I wouldn't just drop him just to drop him. Like there has to be a reasonable ad out there. And to me, it's not a great week for wide receivers. I mean, maybe Tez Johnson is somebody that you look at. Like you said, Mike Evans done for at least the fantasy season. Cade Otton is still out there in over 70% of ESPN leagues. And we talked about him last week kind of being the safest option target-wise in this passing game. 9 more targets for him last night. It is worth noting, though, that Baker threw the ball 50 times. His over-under for attempts coming into the game was 33.5. So this was an even higher volume passing night than we expected. You can't depend on that every single week. But who knows what's going on with Chris Godwin? That's the other part of this. Like you're now taking Evans out of the equation. It's to the moon for Emeka Egbuka. But if Chris Godwin misses any more time, I'm okay firing up Cade Otton. We talked about that as even like a flex option this week with so many key receivers on bye.
Yeah, absolutely right. I think that's a good point. Kind of forget about Godwin a little bit there. We'll see what sort of form Egbuka has too. I mean, I think Baker was bad, and I'm guessing Egbuka wasn't great at getting open all the time as well. Bucs are on bye in week 9, I think. So yeah, that their bye weeks around the corner. If they can. I bet you Godwin sits this week, and then you probably see him back the following week.
Yeah, most likely. I will say it could have been a much bigger night for Egbuka. There were just a couple misses, couple near hits down the field. Baker was at, I think, 0 of 7 throwing the ball 20 plus yards down the field, which he's been so good at so far this season. So just a rough night for him. I thought that, again, the Detroit defense was the story here. Like the Lions, if you would have told me that Detroit was only going to score 24 points, there was no way I would have backed the Lions to cover this game. I would have thought, they probably need to get to 30 to comfortably cover 5.5, 6 at home against Tampa Bay. But all we talked about this whole week, or at least all I talked about, was, man, those injuries in the secondary, no Brian Branch. This is going to be a field day for Baker. If you didn't know that the Lions had injuries, you would have never guessed it. I think the backups in that secondary played extremely well.
Yeah. Devin asked, what about Jalen McMillan? Last I saw, he was in a neck brace. That was about 10 days ago. So I don't anticipate him being very close to returning. Bucs. Yeah. Bucs come get the Saints this week on the road. That's kind of I think it's kind of a trap game again, but I kind of feel like they'll get right. But historically, this has been a tough game for the Bucs. But it's also the principles are gone. Like Evans isn't going to be there. Lattimore is not there anymore. Well, maybe this leads us into a little Saints Bears discussion, because is this a bounce back spot if such a thing exists for the New Orleans Saints coming back home? They played a lot better at home this year. They were brutal in this game. I thought the defense was awful. Maybe Chicago is just getting really good at running the ball, but I when I watch these games, I'm like, this looks more like bad tackling than it does effective running. But between Swift and Monungai, I mean, they were over 200 yards just on those two guys alone. Not a great game from Caleb Williams. Threw a pick, wasn't getting much going downfield. Roma Dunze was not really involved. Saw a little bit more of DJ Moore. It felt to me in the moment watching this game that he had a bigger game than he did. Still was just 3 for 43, and it probably goes down as his most encouraging game of the season. Chris Olave kind of single-handedly kept the Saints in this game, 5 for 98, 2 touchdowns, and another long reception that set up a score. But this was really the first time all year that Spencer Rattler kind of turned back into the Rat Man from last year. 3 picks, just never looked comfortable. There's one of the picks, he's scrambling outside of the pocket. He's like waving his arms, directing traffic, throws it into double coverage. Like he'd been so good. He'd been so good at avoiding those plays, and just didn't have it. There was a sequence there where it's like play for a loss, near miss interception. Bears bail out the Saints with a roughing the passer on 3rd and 28, and then they turn it over anyhow right after that. It was just, it was a really rough look there for that. And I thought Caleb Williams was disappointing in this game.
Yeah.
And maybe the weather had an issue with that. It was wet early on. But and maybe both quarterbacks look bad because of that, but because the Bears were running the ball so readily, it was just like, why bother turning it loose? And I think if you look at like Ben Johnson's offenses in Detroit, they ran the ball well. And I think getting the running game going was probably one of their priorities. Yeah. It worked today. Not today. It worked this week. And the defense was great, absent 2 drives for the Saints. One at the end of the first half, which they had no business scoring on. They were doing nothing. Absolutely. It was 20-0. They were dead in the water. Yeah. All of a sudden, they hit Olave with that deep ball. And I thought he was going to score on the deep ball.
It was actually a nice tackle by Stevenson.
Yeah. But then he got open again in the end zone. Great game for Olave. He was great. The second touchdown, it was a good route. And just they couldn't keep up with them. And like, oh, it's 20-14 now. This is a game. And they did nothing the rest of the way after that.
Yeah, that was one of our bold predictions for this week on the YouTube channel, was that Chris Olave would get his first, true big game of the year, because the underlying numbers have been really good. He's still top 5 in the NFL in team target share. He's way up there in terms of total targets, number 2 in the NFL, behind only Jamar Chase. And, there's been some Chris Olave trade rumors. I don't think that'll happen, but we'll see if the Saints would entertain that. And then just a couple more quick notes here. Injury-wise for the Saints, their starting center, Eric McCoy, done for the season, tore his biceps in this game, so that hurts. Kendre Miller tore his ACL. He played 2 snaps, tore the knee on the second of those snaps. So we ended up seeing more Alvin Kamara as opposed to like more Devin Neal. I still think, especially in a deeper league, I would grab Devin Neal just in the event that Kamara is traded. Unlikely, or Kamara gets hurt or sees a workload reduction, which is more likely. So he's kind of in that obvious second running back spot right now. And then on the Bears side of things, I think you look at Kyle Monangai as a handcuff option.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if the workload's going to be like it was in this game every week, but the Bears have talked about wanting to use multiple running backs. And then keep an eye on Cole Kmet, went out with a back injury midway through the second half. So could crack the door open for Colston Loveland, but the Bears just aren't really throwing it with volume because they haven't had to, and they have the 4th lowest rate of throwing to tight ends on the year. So interesting prospect, obviously, but the underlying numbers not looking great.
Agreed. One other note, Saints note there too. We saw we did see a little bit of Taysom Hill, and it was always disastrous. There was the end around that failed badly. And even worse, what could have been a cool play, the pass then lateral, ended up being a forward pass. So that was LOL Saints.
I'm glad you brought that up. That would have been awesome. That was like a 3rd and 20, I think.
And
it was so close too. It was definitely a forward pass, but man, it was a matter of like 2 inches.
Yeah, but they reviewed it. I'll say this: on my first viewing of it, I thought for sure it was a forward pass. The broadcasters were a little slow on picking that up, but I guess it was a lot closer than I gave it credit for. But anyways, it was a disappointing showing by the Saints all around, and certainly not a big. I think you'll see more Taysom Hill with the Kendre Miller injury there a little bit there too because of all that. All right, we got a couple more games to break down, but first, got a quick note from our friends at MegaSports Progressive. Elevate your game with the ultimate sports contest, MegaSports Progressive. Dive into a world of excitement with 3 progressive jackpots and a chance to win big every week and every month. We're rewarding 1,500 lucky winners, distributing over $50,000 in monthly prizes. All you do is answer 15 daily sports props. Add up your correct responses for the week's cash prizes and tally the week's totals for huge monthly cash rewards. MegaSports Pro makes it fun and easy to join. This is a thrilling opportunity to be part of our growing community of sports enthusiasts. Sign up today and unlock a chance to win big every day, every week, and every month. Sign up is free, no commitments, no credit cards. Your first 9 days of play are free. Visit megasportspro.com today. Nick, I thought the morning slate was almost universally disappointing, maybe absent Vikings, Eagles, and what we saw with the Bears running game. So I want to focus more on the afternoon game. So I thought there's some more meat on the bones here. Starting off with Colts-Chargers. Some people are picking the Chargers to win this game, maybe be a lively upset. And the Colts disabuses of that notion really quickly in this one and kept scoring. Despite like second half passing yards, heroics from Justin Herbert, this game was never really that close. And I'm surprised because I think the Colts just big brother the Chargers in this one here.
Yeah, I thought this maybe would be the trip up spot for Indianapolis. It clearly was not. Once again, it just feels like the Colts are the team that strikes first. Like every single week, you're immediately putting the opponent, kind of into a corner and forcing them to answer. Colts scored touchdowns on their first 3 drives of the game. We're just completely off and running from there. And the Chargers, we'll kind of talk more about what they look like going forward. But this was really, really discouraging because I think this Colts defense is pretty gettable. And I guess we saw that at times in the second half. Like the Chargers did score touchdowns on 3 straight drives. Unfortunately, by the time they scored their 3rd touchdown early in the 4th quarter, it was to make a 38-17 game, a 38-24 game because their defense could not do anything. But this is also who the Colts have been just about every week. I mean, number 1 in EPA per play, number 1 in success rate, number 1 in EPA per rush, 6th in EPA per pass. There just doesn't really seem to be a weakness for this offense. And, it's right now, it's the best offense in terms of points per drive in the last 25 plus years. The only other teams that are like in the neighborhood are the 07 Pats, the 2020 Packers. That was a Rodgers MVP year. Last year's Detroit Lions, an all-time great offense. And then the peak Drew Brees New Orleans Saints. It's like we are reaching all-time elite levels for the Indianapolis Colts. And I know you can look and say, well, they played the Dolphins, they played the Titans, they played the Raiders. Every team has played a couple bad teams by now. Like we're 7 games into the season. We're almost at the halfway point. Like I think this is more than just some sort of early season fluke.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's the dialogue is when are they for real? When do we finally put them among the contenders? I mean, yeah, you could put them below the Bills and the Chiefs in the AFC, but I mean, I think they're the 3rd best AFC team, and I think they are definitely a contender. Yeah. They have a chance of winning, a bye even, that's
they're going to run away with that division. Jacksonville is terrible. Houston looks terrible. The Titans are the Titans. I mean, they have a very, very clear path. Like Buffalo might not even win its own division.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. You're right. And, it's just, and the best part about this is I didn't hear a single person calling it. Like I heard some people talking up like players around the quarterback position, but Daniel Jones is playing at a level that just didn't see coming. And Jonathan Taylor's perfectly healthy now, and that's great. And remember some of the dialogue we've had with Jonathan Taylor previous seasons entering the season. That's long gone. He looks amazing. The offensive line's playing at a great level. I think their defense has some issues, namely their secondary. The fact they had 1 guy retire on them, they got 2 other guys out long-term with concussions. That's a real problem. But their offense is just a machine. They could have won that Rams game. They could be undefeated right now.
Probably should be. And I mean, they'll almost certainly be 7-1 coming out of week 8. I mean, they're 14.5-point home favorites for the worst team in the NFL. So they should be able to keep this rolling. A couple other fantasy notes here. Josh Downs did not play. Right. So that led to more Alec Pierce. He was the target leader with 10, caught 5 of those for 98 yards. Tyler Warren just doing what he does every week, 4 for 69 and a touchdown, 7 for 58 and a touchdown for Michael Pittman. So really like every key piece in the Colts offense ended up coming home for fantasy. And then almost all this was garbage time. Justin Herbert threw the ball 55 times. So Keenan Allen goes 11 for 119 on 14 targets. Ladd McConkey, 9 for 67 on 15 targets. Quiet game for Quentin Johnston, 2 for 30, did find the end zone, but only 6 targets. One of Herbert's interceptions did come on a red zone target to Quentin Johnston, just a bad throw by Herbert. And Aronde Gadsden, man, somebody we mentioned in Sneaky Ads last week, 9 targets, 7 catches, 164 yards, and a touchdown. I believe I think it's like 40 more yards than any other tight end has had in a game this season.
The yards per catch. It kept on going, kept on big play after chunk play after chunk play. One other note, I'm all for alternate uniforms, but never again with those yellow uniforms.
You got to win if you're pulling out the all yellows.
Just don't. It's not their color scheme. It's just, I mean, they tried to out Oregon, and it backfired on them there. Just don't do that. It was horrible. Yeah, bad on the eyes. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah. So where do you want to go next year? I want to hop around and hit as many of these as we can.
Cowboys-Commanders, Packers-Cardinals, Niners-Falcons. Those in that order. I'd like to hit those.
Okay. Cowboys-Commanders game just got away from Washington. Dallas goes down, scores right away, but then you get a safety, you get a touchdown for Washington, and you're thinking, okay, maybe this is the back and forth game we thought it would be. Jaden Daniels ended up going out. That was kind of the final blow for Washington. No McLaurin, no Deebo Samuel. They were always going to be up against it offensively, but you kind of felt like maybe the Dallas defense just offsets that. And if there's a game to be without your top 2 receivers, maybe this is it. But man, Washington, this defense, man, has just totally crumbled over the last couple of weeks. Gave up 409 yards of offense, and that was with Dallas kind of shutting it down late in the game. 6.6 yards per play. It ended up being a huge day for CeeDee Lamb. George Pickens ended up getting his. Javonte Williams bounced back after a bad game last week. Just Dallas kind of running on all cylinders. It's a well-oiled machine offensively, no question about it. The defense did play pretty well in this game. I don't think I'm ready to say they've taken any steps forward. We will see. They have committed a lot of sins defensively this year that will take multiple games for me to fully come around on. But there are rumors out there that the Dallas Cowboys are looking to acquire Max Crosby. We'll see if that ultimately happens. I would say more unlikely than likely, but at least looking to improve that defense in a big spot now for the Dallas Cowboys. Should be a really fun game in Week 8 at the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, it should be. It should be indeed. I'm not feeling any better about the Cowboys defense. I think this was almost perfectly a situation there where they knew the Commanders had literally nobody that could hurt them in the wide receiver group. They just played, up against the line, and they took away the run and said, okay, Jaden, you got to beat us with your arm with these substandard receivers. You couldn't do it. Also, one other note offensively, how well Dak Prescott is playing. Note from Bob Strum. I think he's a Dallas radio host. I saw this on Twitter earlier. 15 times in Cowboys history, they've had a game with 400 yards of offense, 40 points, and 0 giveaways. Staubach, Aikman, White, and Romo did it once. Meredith did it twice. Dak Prescott has now done it 9 times. 9 times. He twice this year, including the 40-40 game against the Packers earlier this year. He is playing on a level right now that is so good, Nick. And remember, there's so much talk about, okay, maybe Schottenheimer is going to be like Marty, like his dad, and we're going to do, Marty ball, or going to run ground and pound. Yeah, Williams looks good, and he looked good against the Commanders. Don't get me wrong. But man, Dak is just on a level right now.
Is it crazy to consider Dak 20-1 for MVP if you don't want to bet Mahomes at barely plus money? No, I don't think it's that crazy. I mean, especially if Dallas could find a way to win the Denver game, which how the Broncos are playing right now, I don't think that's off the table. And then you get the Cardinals and the Raiders after that. I mean, the schedule is really tough at the end of the year. Dallas obviously will need to make the playoffs for that to be a true consideration. And they're 3-3-1 right now. So there's a reason he is 20-1, but he's playing as well as anybody right now. Yeah. I would say that with a full degree of confidence.
Right. Getting CeeDee Lamb back also certainly helped. Yep. They hit him early, had the long touchdown, obviously. So that also was very, very nice. All right, let's move on to the next game here because we got a lot to talk about still. Packers-Cardinals. This was one that, the Cardinals had a fourth quarter lead in this game. It never, maybe, you probably watched this a little bit more closer contemporaneously. Did it feel like the Packers were in danger, or that they were just playing with their food, or did it feel like, or were they really, does Arizona have a real chance of winning this game?
Oh, Arizona absolutely had a chance to win this game. And this wasn't like the Dallas game or the Cleveland game where you're like, all right, Green Bay's in control and they're just messing around. It wasn't that at all. I mean, the defense, I thought, played pretty poorly. I had Micah. This was kind of the reason why you trade for Micah Parsons' game. 3 huge sacks, including 2 in the second half. One that kind of felt like it ended the game late. For whatever reason, the Cardinals were not really double teaming him in ways that most teams do. But the Packers defense just kept giving up big plays and, long conversions on third down. The Cardinals at one point, I think, were 7 of 11 converting third downs. A lot of third and shorts, giving up 5-6 yard runs on first down. So I thought defensively the Packers did not play a great game. And this game started like a lot of Packers games do, with them giving up a 15-play, almost 8-minute drive. Yep. So all of a sudden, like, each team possessed the ball one time in the first quarter. And I think that's what you want to do as a home underdog, is just kind of keep the ball away from that Packers offense. So I thought Jordan Love played fine. Made a big time throw to Tucker Kraft on a 4th down. Green Bay sent out the field goal unit, called a timeout, took the field goal unit off, and then put the ball in Love's hands. Was not an overly well-designed play. Like, there was not an obvious read. You could kind of see a little bit of panic, and then Jordan Love just lofts one in perfectly for Tucker Kraft to set up the go-ahead score. But even after that, like, Arizona drove it all the way down, almost to the red zone, and had a couple of shots to potentially seal this at the end. So Green Bay, I believe now in all 4 wins has scored exactly 27 points. Yeah, that's right. 27-13, 27-18, 27-18, 27-23. It's not an exaggeration to say they kind of keep playing the same game over and over. This was not nearly as impressive as week 1 or week 2 But I think a huge win for the Packers just to take some pressure off as you start to look ahead to the schedule, and especially heading into this showdown against Rodgers on Sunday.
Yeah. Big Micah Parsons game, huge sack at the end.
Yep.
Arizona, I saw our buddy Ted Bell, and that's his pseudonym, but that's his Twitter name, tweeted about this. They should have called a timeout after getting that first down at the 23 or so.
Yep.
Instead, they took a sack, lost time, and then took the timeout and pretty much killed the game at that point in time. Brissett, they're playing better with Brissett than they are with Hart. Period.
No question. Brissett was great in this game, like really good. Just made a ton of big throws. There were a couple. I was watching this game with some friends of mine who are diehard Packers fans, and they're blaming the corners. Nate Hobbs was not good. He was brutal in this game. But like there were a couple where it's like, I don't know what you do, man. Like he's just dropping in these balls to Harrison, to Michael Wilson. Brissett played really well. I don't think you could take anything away from him. Trey McBride, by the way, now has 24 targets over the last 2 games. He has 3 touchdowns in that span. That is the same number of touchdowns that he had from the start of last season through Kyler Murray's last game. So 3 touchdowns in his last 2 games, 3 touchdowns in his previous 21 games.
It's almost like Kyler's not good in the red zone. I don't know. Weird, strange.
Who's to say?
Yeah, many are saying. All right. Yeah, I would say one other quick thing. Packers were right to dispose of Jair Alexander, but they didn't do anything to replace him. And I think that's showing up a little bit. If there's one Achilles heel on that defense, I think it's that.
Well, they also didn't have Devontae Wyatt or Lucas Van Ness, and I think Wyatt especially matters. I think if you get one or both of those guys back, I think that'll change things. I don't know if the defense is ever going to look as good as it looked weeks 1 and 2, but I think missing Wyatt really matters.
All right. One more game, then we have a read, then the lightning round. Niners-Falcons, the Sunday night game. The Niners defense has to be the story there. My frustration's a little bit with Michael Penix. It was bad Michael Penix tonight, or Sunday night. God, it's the second time I've done that. But the Niners were missing the 2 of their 3 best defensive players.
Yep.
Yet all these young guys stepped up and played great. And some of that has to be, you got to just give a credit to Robert Saleh. You got to give credit to the young players. But I think they had some help, as Morgan Wallen might say. That there was a little bit about them, the Falcons being complicit in the Niners defense playing so well.
Yeah, no question. Was not a great Penix game by any means. Was definitely not a total disaster either. And you kind of forget, and they mentioned this on the broadcast, like this is his 9th NFL start. And I think if they had all happened in one season and you're at the 9-game mark, you would say like, all right, I'm pretty satisfied with how he's looked. Like I'm not saying he's tracking as a future superstar, but I think when you compare him to a lot of rookie quarterbacks making their 9th career start, I think Penix still looks pretty good. But I also saw some plays, that were highlighted in retrospect where he's just, Drake London is standing wide open on one side of the field. Penix is locked in, looking to his right. He still doesn't love throwing over the middle. So that there are some things to work out here, but it really was about the Niners defense. I was all over the under in this game. 47.5 was an insane number to me for a Falcons offense that just doesn't really travel. Obviously, they only scored 10 points in this game. San Francisco without Fred Warner did a great job slowing down Bijan Robinson, 14 carries, 40 yards on the ground, did still go 6 for 52 with a score through the air. And I mean, Atlanta was still threatening to win this game until, Christian McCaffrey, I believe, had the final touchdown to put San Francisco up 10 late in the fourth quarter. So it was not like an excellent effort by Mac Jones, 17 of 26, 152 yards and a pick, but McCaffrey and the Niners were able to actually run the ball really for the first time this season. Like we've seen all these high attempt, low efficiency games, 24 for 129 and 2 touchdowns, still got the receiving production as well out of McCaffrey. Niners, man, it's really impressive. I mean, maybe this is the year Shanahan finally wins Coach of the Year.
I think the running game improved because of the Kittle effect. I think he's a better blocker, and he's just, I think, and it's just, you have to account for him. Otherwise, even though he did nothing for us, I think it helped the Niners a little bit there. I think the Falcons really felt the absence of Caleb McGarry. Losing your backside tackle, I thought that was pretty big. And then finally, it was a Bryce Huff game. This is what the Eagles thought they were getting last year. It turns out you reunite them there with Saleh, and good things happen. Unfortunately, Huff got hurt in this game. He's going to miss time because of a hamstring strain. But he was really good early, for a good stretch of this game. They kept on getting a lot of pressure on and Penix on that last drive too. Pretty impressive stuff there. All right, we got to do. We're going to empty Nick's notebook, but first, quick note from our friends over at Chalkboard. You got to cash in on your NFL picks this season with Chalkboard. Simply choose more or less on your favorite player stats to win up to 5,000 times your money. For a limited time only, new players get $20 free with no deposit required. Yes, you heard that right. $20 free just on sign up. See why over 1 million fans have already locked in with Chalkboard to turn their sports knowledge into cold hard cash. Whether you're locking in the perfect slip with alternate lines, using the cash out feature to take your money and run, or hammering the daily promos, today is your chance to win up to $40,000 on a single entry. Stop sitting on the sidelines. Get into the game with Chalkboard Fantasy Sports. Now available in 30 plus states. Download Chalkboard today. Use promo code ROTONFL. That's ROTO NFL to get $20 free with no deposit required. All right, Nick. We got 5 games left to cover. I want you to give me a fact or 2 at most in each of these games, because I know you have a hoops auction to come up here starting with here. So starting off, Eagles-Vikings.
Eagles-Vikings, fun game. Really fun game. I would say the most notable thing that we saw here is that the Eagles passing game had one of its best games ever in the Jalen Hurts era. I thought Jalen Hurts played incredibly well, did nothing on the ground in this game, but hit a couple big ones to Devontae Smith, to A.J. Brown, one down the sideline to A.J. Brown to seal this game late. Devontae Smith goes 9 for 183 and a touchdown, 11 targets. A.J. Brown, 4 for 141 and 2 touchdowns. Another bad Saquon Barkley game, though. 18 carries, 44 yards, 1 catch for negative yardage. Still has 0 runs of 20-plus yards on the season. He already had 7 at this point last year. He has 11 runs of 10-plus yards, which is okay. Had 17 of those by this point last season.
Yep. And he briefly got checked for a concussion in that one there too.
Yep.
Was really happy to see Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown get unleashed. I've got questions about Carson Wentz. The Vikings have questions about Wentz versus McCarthy.
He is starting this week.
Yep. So that Wentz is starting. Okay. They're taking their time with McCarthy. Of course, short week. I'm not terribly surprised at that. All right. Next game on the list here. Rams-Jags. I'm sorry.
This was a kind of a beatdown, but also a game where the Jags ended up significantly outgaining the Rams. Like, it's pretty hard to put up 360 yards of offense, not turn the ball over, and only reach the red zone twice. Like the Jags would, they'd move the ball and then it would just stall out around midfield. They went for a number of 4th downs. They were 2 of 6 on 4th down in this game. Just bad play calling, bad play from Trevor Lawrence. Brian Thomas looks completely broken. He's almost like unstartable to me right now. Parker Washington was targeted 10 times. Thomas also, by the way, ended up kind of going out late with what looked like a shoulder injury. And Travis Hunter, 8 for 101 and a touchdown. 14 targets for Travis Hunter. No player has been targeted more than Travis Hunter over these last couple of weeks outside of Jamar Chase, but a good chunk of that did come late in this game. We'll see if they get him more involved after the bye, but Jags just feel like kind of a broken operation right now. Like the Rams were in London for like 24 hours. They were without Puka Nacua. This game was never in doubt.
Nope. And it was interesting because they made a point of talking about the Rams approach arriving on Saturday, just pretending it's like another 3-hour West Coast to East Coast trip. And it seemed like it worked. It might've been the Jags doing their part there. One other quick note, it was Eisen and Warner during the game. And I like both of those guys individually. I think they're smart people. At one point in time, at the end of the second quarter, the Jags are doing a hurry up offense with like 5 minutes left. And they're like, why are they going tempo? They don't need the tempo. You don't want the Rams to get the ball back. It was the only drive that was working the entire half. That's why they were doing tempo was the point to try to get that. Of course, the 2-minute warning broke up that tempo and they fizzled out after that because reasons. That's what they do. But still, it was driving me crazy. Like, of course, that's why they're keeping with the tempo because it's working. All right. Enough about that. Jags on bye this week. Rams on bye this week. Pats, Titans, early success with Cam Ward and DK in particular was on the receiving end of that there. But really, this was another Drake May game and a Ramondre Stevenson game.
Yeah, I think that's the big takeaway. Like Drake May was great, 21 of 23. I think he was at one point he was like 20 of 21, had a pass batted down late in the game. But once again, very little Travion Henderson, even as this devolved into a blowout. 9 snaps for Henderson, 47 for Stevenson.
Panthers-Jets. Great individual defensive play by the Panthers corners. This is an ugly game though.
Ugly game. Panthers really did not play that well. Jets defense showed up once again this week. Only 5 targets for Tedero and McMillan. Xavier Legette, 10 targets for him. He went 9 for 92 and a touchdown. As kind of promised, the running back usage was almost an even split. 38 snaps for Hubbard, 33 for Dowdle, 17 carries for Dowdle, 14 for Hubbard. So about as even as it gets. Jets, of course, had no weapons in this game. Justin Fields was benched. I think we see Tyrod Taylor in week 8, and Bryce Young going to miss at least a game. So we will get Andy Dalton out there this week.
Yeah. Bills fans actually love Andy Dalton because he put them in the playoffs when they beat the Ravens one year. They gave money to his charity. Pretty cool stuff there. Last one, speaking of not playing very well, Raiders and the Chiefs. Rashee Rice was awesome. Mahomes was awesome. The Raiders were horrible.
Horrible. One of the most lopsided games in recent memory. Patrick Mahomes played 5 possessions in this game. It was 434 to 95 in terms of total yardage. The Raiders ran 30 plays in this game. That is the second fewest ever. The 1999 Browns, first year they were back as an expansion team, they ran 28 in a game against the Steelers. Time of possession was 42:08 to 17:52, about as lopsided as it gets. 3 first downs for the Raiders. And then ending on this, Rashee Rice, as promised, heavily involved, 10 targets, 7 catches, 42 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Absolutely. They get the Commanders on the Monday night game. So should be a lot more of that the same. All right. That's going to wrap up this podcast. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Be back again with talking rankings tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in. Take care.